Hi everybody, Dana Litwin here again, and welcome back to Tuesday Tips for Leaders of Volunteers. This week talking about informal volunteering in disaster response and specifically mutual aid groups. If you work for a nonprofit or government agency running volunteer programs, I highly recommend that if you do not already know what mutual aid groups exist in your area, especially for emergency or disaster response, like we're seeing more and more often with climate change and severe weather, absolutely get in touch with mutual aid groups, collaborate, cooperate, and whenever possible, set up a partnership agreement. It can be formal or informal, MOU, whatever, but have open communication with mutual aid groups because those are usually the absolute first on the scene, first responders in any disaster because they're already in the community and a part of the community and trusted by the community. So whatever you can do to help that is great. If you haven't heard this statistic before, about 70% of volunteering anywhere in the world at any given time is informal. It's not officially with an organization, a nonprofit or a government agency. And there's informal volunteering, which usually includes mutual aid. Sometimes a mutual aid group is a nonprofit and they're set up as a legal entity, but most of the time it's more of a loose affiliation or alliance, just people kind of coming together where there is some structure and some leadership, but there probably isn't the same formal processes and systems and data recording that are happening with a nonprofit that's applying for grants, things like that. Mutual aid groups are really the first wave of triage in disaster response because they're already there. Mutual aid groups are also really great at directing and absorbing both spontaneous volunteers, so people who don't volunteer with a nonprofit or government agency, and they're caught up in a disaster and they're just stepping up to help their friends and neighbors and other members of the community in whatever ways they can. And you see that a lot. It's kind of, the Mr. Rogers look for the helpers phrase. But recently with hurricanes Helene and Milton in the American Southeast, there was extra levels of devastation in the mountains, in the Appalachian Mountains, because that's not usually a place that you think about hurricanes going to. And so sudden floodwaters, and again, it kind of severe extreme weather and climate change, these are only going to get worse. So setting up some sort of communication or mutually beneficial, cooperative, collaborative relationship with mutual aid groups in your area, in addition to what you're doing with VOAD or CERT or NERT or FEMA or Red Cross or United Way or other organizations, if you're not part of Red Cross, United Way, you really want everybody at the table to get the best outcomes when emergencies strike. The mutual aid groups, because they're already there, they get immediate action. Usually in disasters or right after an emergency, you'll see, Asheville Mutual Aid, Cash App, Venmo, send things. Most mutual aid groups are known and trusted in the community. You just want to be careful that, there's always bad people, opportunists, bad actors trying to maybe copy an organization or whatever. But typically when disaster strikes, you can start to get a pretty good vetted list of mutual aid groups to send money. In general, in disaster response, sending money and donations to the agencies responding, formal or informal, is the best way to help people immediately. And again, mutual aid, when you donate to mutual aid groups, it's immediately going into effect, and it doesn't have that filter or administrative levels of delays that Red Cross, United Way have, just because they're larger, more formal, or global or national organizations. No shade on them. They're just things that work differently, so you want to have that balance of informal, spontaneous, mutual aid, and have that agreement in place to be cooperative and collaborative with them if your nonprofit's going to be involved at all in any kind of disaster response or caught up in that response. One of my favorite things that happened that I witnessed in the Helene and Milton response, especially up in the mountains, was other businesses that aren't usually affiliated with search and rescue or mutual aid really step up. So restaurants open up to feed their neighbors. I've seen this in California wildfire areas as well. And my favorite my favorite part of the rescue story recently with the hurricanes in the southeast was mule trains. So pack mules that usually take tourists and hikers on trails and into national parks. Really some of the only ways to get into these more rural, isolated, especially mountainous areas after roads washed out with flooding were helicopters and horses, and that included mule packs and donkeys. So allow the room in whatever your emergency response is to both accommodate and accept whatever you can do to amplify what mutual aid groups are doing, and they can help your organization as well. So one of my favorite phrases is, oh, if you're worried about something in the world, or there's a particular disaster, or just a tree fell across the road in your area, somebody should do something about that. Well, this is my reminder to you that you are somebody, not just as a leader of volunteers, but if you look around in your local area and you don't easily find a mutual aid group, maybe you're the one to start one, and especially applying your skills as a leader of volunteers. So I'll put some more resource links below to learn more about mutual aid and spontaneous volunteering, and kind of how to incorporate that more and more drop-in volunteers when you are responding to any kind of urgent situation. It doesn't have to be as big as a hurricane or wildfire or earthquake, but it's really great to have these community partnerships in place before something really serious happens, and then you're all better prepared. I hope you enjoy these Tuesday tips. Please share this video and like it if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you're not yet part of the Cool Kids Club, Priceless Advice. And let me know if you have any ideas for guests or topics on this channel. I'd love to hear from you, and comment below if you've ever worked with natural disaster emergency response and what your experience has been leading volunteers either for your agency or seeing spontaneous or informal volunteers and working with mutual aid. Hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care. See you next time.